Another Is450 lecture. Today we will be covering assurance, reliability and secure IT services for lecture 18. Let's take a look at the overview. Basically, you understand the risk management and importance of IT, factors that drive IT reliability, recognize sources of IT system security risks, and how to protect IT system. Also risk management principle and the inevitability of incident. Touch wood, hopefully it doesn't happen. Understand incident management and disaster recovery. So we will take a look at the risk management. In terms of reliability, basically what are the available hardware, software, or infrastructure, for example. Some companies we have redundancy, where they have backup generator, backup server or database, and so basically a large number of potential path required redundant equipment. Okay, in terms of failure, there is a backup, immediate backup. System becomes more complex and more expensive. So basically, reliability and cost, there's a trade-off. In terms of security, protecting against malicious threat, for example, external attack, intrusion, viruses, and worms, which is a growing importance. Okay? So take note that reliability and availability, the cycle from redundancy, complexity, reliability, and cost trade-off. So the probability of availability, basically the length of outage, typically requires 5n, which is 59, sorry, 99.999%. It's less than 1 second downtime per 24 hours, or no more than a minute in 3 months. Okay? The availability of components in series, for example, series component availability 0.98, about 2.5 hours a day, joint probability. The effect of redundancy on availability, for example, probability of failure is a joint probability of each redundant system, 0.2. This 0.310 to the power of 8, 9 availability less than 1 second per 1000 days. This is basically a parallel union probability. Also, take note about high reliability facilities, which most large company are having there. Uninterruptible electrical power delivery, for example. Also physical security, climate control and fire suppression, for example, are also included. Network connectivity, N+1 and N+N redundancy. Basically, N+1 is basically for each critical component at least one standby. For example, 4 generator has 5th generator to standby. N+N is basically twice many units standby. 4 generator is equal to standby of 8 generator. Okay? It's a 2 system backup. Next, we take a look at security. Here we will talk about classification of threat, external attack, intrusion, virus and worm defensive measures. An external attack harm or degrade the services without actually accessing the system. Things like denial of service from multiple source distributed is more difficult to defend. In this case, denial attack, let's say you go to the website and you can't get into it. Three-way handshake, synchronous hello, for example, synchronous acknowledgement, do you want to talk, acknowledge, yes, let's talk. Flooding the synchronous, this is basically a fake needs, for example. In normal terms, denial of access from one source, distributed of DOA, denial of access, one leader and many attack. Also, we have intrusion, which is gain access using ID and password by guessing or sniffing. Viruses and worms is common. Malicious software programs, worms replicate and move around automatically. There has been word that most of these viruses are created by antivirus company. So there's a myth to it, as today, like the pandemic, there's been speculation of an antidote prior to the pandemic. Basically, a vaccine has been created prior to the spread of the pandemic. Okay. Some of the defensive measures, for example, security policy, password, what kind of password, how often to change, who is allowed to have an account, security features on a PC to connect network with services are allowed on company PC, what is to download by user, how security policy are enforced, firewall, shareware to prevent unauthorized access, how to distinguish between legitimate needs and unauthorized need, and last but not least, authentication, control access to prove genuineness or truth. So let's take a look at the risk management principle. Here we have the graph between consequences and probability, with high consequences and low probability to high consequences to high probability, which is a critical threat above the graph shown, and anything in between is prioritized threat, and anything below is a minor threat. Okay. Consequences and damage, probability dimension expected, C multiplied by P. Like I mentioned earlier, critical threat are high priority, minor threat are low priority. So the trade-off, risk versus system efficiency, there will be cost versus redundancy and security. So if there is no threat, all the money that's spent to protect, to secure the system is not being used or tested. So, but prevention is better than cure. Okay? There should be a plan and rehearsal, inevitably of accident, need to manage an incident before, during, and after. Right. And last but not least, we will talk about incident management and disaster recovery. Here we have how to manage incident before they occur, during, and after the incident. Basically, you need a sound infrastructure design prior to any incident, design and recoverable and tolerance of failure contain the loss. There should be a disciplined execution of operating procedure, knowledge on infrastructure, configuration to make an effective diagnose. Things like data backup, procedure of loss of data, prevention loss of data, structure infrastructure, health audit procedure to uncover problems, carefully documentation of procedure for crisis management and configuration, establish crisis management procedure that guide diagnose, help to avoid decision traps, determine who should be involved. There should be some rehearsal or some tests. Basically managing during the incident, avoiding psychological traps, obstacles, for example, worst case scenario, emotional response, for example, confusion, denial, fear, panic, wishful thinking, and group thinking. Group does not consider all alternatives, and they desire unanimity at the expense of quality decision. Having said that, you need to be able to have political maneuvering, dive for cover, ducking the responsibility. That's quite common. Okay? Leaping to conclusion, blindness to evidence and contradicts the current evidence. In terms of managing after the incident, rebuild infrastructure, and you have to understand why it happens. Okay, so basically that is in a nutshell for assuring reliability and secure IT services. If you have any question or doubts or inquiry, please email me or drop by my office for an appointment. Thank you very much, and please stay safe. Bye bye.